agree why this has garnered so many awards and so many nominations already through the festival circuit. Thank you very much. Phenomenal film. But this stems from a true life experience and story, your story, which started out with This American Life. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about how it went from your life to This American Life to what we saw tonight?
Yeah, when this was happening to me, I was actually in post-production on my first feature film, which was a screwball comedy. And as this was happening, I was like, well, this is why I love screwballs, because my life is a screwball. This is so ridiculous, but yet so sad, and I knew I wanted to make it as a movie. But a lot of the initial people that I pitched it to were like, we love that idea, but can you just like make it different? Like, we love it, but can you make like the main character the bride, and she comes back and she's the one who has to get married, because that would like increase the stakes. And I very quickly saw like that it was deviating from the story that I wanted to tell. So I set it aside for a while and was working on other projects, and I was on I was doing film festivals with a short film I had made when a producer from This American Life approached me, and he said, I love your voice, what other stories do you have? I'd love to get you on the show. So I pitched this, this story, and it got on right away. And what the first question, they asked me when I went in to start working on the project was, they were like, this story is amazing, tell us more. And they said, oh, well, how did that make you feel? And it was just such a different approach to this telling the story. It's like, asking me how I felt about each moment, as opposed to saying, this is great, but can we cast differently? Can we do this? Can we, like putting their ideas, which was kind of what Hollywood was doing before that. So going through This American Life and taking a more investigative, journalistic approach was really, really helpful, because it allowed me to dig deeper. And then, of course, once the story aired on NPR, within 24 hours, producers were calling, wanting to make it as a film. And there were so many producers calling that I actually got to make a decision. Like, I got to choose who I wanted to make it, and I got to interview them as opposed to walking in a room and pitching. I got to walk in and say, all right, so you, like everybody else, wants to make it, but like, how do you want to do it? And I was able to pick the producers who saw my vision and were willing to protect my vision.
Fantastic. That's quite an unusual story. I don't think it usually goes that way, especially with a female filmmaker, and you brought this to life through Sundance, is that right?
Well, I had written it, we were pretty close. We went through the Sundance labs, but really as, it was more of like a last minute, like before we went into pre-production, I did a workshop through Sundance, and it was really helpful because the script was all there, but we did a workshop and did some writing exercises that just allowed me to go even deeper with the characters.
And the characters are absolutely phenomenal. And I think about Awkwafina, and she's got quite a comedic tone to her, and she does in this film as well, but she also shows that she has dramatic chops as well. Tell me about casting her and how she related to this story personally.
Well, when I first met with her, my producer brought her name up, and they said, there's this woman named Awkwafina, I don't know if you know her. I was like, yeah, and this was before Crazy Rich Asians, and it was before Ocean's 8. So I knew of her because my brother introduced me to her music, and so I was like, the girl who did my badge, like, that's who I want to play me. Like, are we on the same page here? This is a drama. It's funny, but it's a drama. And they were like, okay, well, will you just meet with her, because she read the script and she really resonates. So I have to admit, I was skeptical, because just based on her work, like, she didn't have a lot of dramatic lead, as a lead role and dramatic experience as an actor. And then we met, and she told me that she was raised by her Chinese grandmother. Her mom died when she was 4, her mother was Korean, and her father's side was Chinese, and his mother raised her. And so it was such a personal story to her. She studied abroad in Beijing, like I did during college. I was like, okay, this is great, it's personal, but can you act? And she's like, well, that's probably what you're wondering. I know, like, let me prove it to you. So she sent a self-tape of a couple scenes, and I was watching it recently, actually, and I remember the moment that made me realize that I had to cast her. It was not when she was speaking the lines, it was in all the moments when she was waiting for the person who was off camera delivering lines, and she was listening and she was silent. because this character is silent through so much, and yet you have to feel like you're with them and you understand what they're going through. And she had so much emotion on her face when she was silent. And those were the moments when I knew that she was the right one for the role.
And the chemistry too with, can you please pronounce the woman's name who plays Nai?
Zhao.
Zhao, their chemistry together is spectacular. Tell me about working with that and finding Zhao.
Yeah, she is a very famous soap opera actress in China. And so she's worked a lot in her lifetime, and she's also, gets paid a lot of money. And which we as Americans don't think, because we're like, well, we don't know her. So, and she's, not on IMDb. So, she can't possibly charge that much, right? But in China, they're working all the time because it's a giant country, and she plays the grandma on everything. And so she's like, great, another grandma role, right? She's like, well, this is my rate. And the producers were like, whoa, like, we don't know who this person is, and that's not what we budgeted. And so it was tricky, and I had to fight for her, because when we first got to China, we started casting. We saw a bunch of people, most of which, the ones who were good, we couldn't afford. And so then we were casting non-actors, so I had my casting directors at the park every day, and they were
just a random park?
Yeah, okay. Just like every park around the city, and they were just stopping old ladies and being like, our movie.
No arrests were made, everything was okay.
Everything was okay, but a lot of them were really trepidatious, and they were just like, who are you, would know? And then the other people who were really hammy, and they would do dances, and we're like, this is great, but they're not an actor. And so we did that for a few weeks before I finally put my foot down, and I found Zhao, and I was like, this is the woman, we gotta make it work. And I called her, I called the producers, so I begged them to pay her more, I called her and begged her to take less, and we made it work. And she came and she met my real grandma, and I think that meant a lot to her, because I said, this is my real grandmother that you're portraying, and I don't know, I've seen a lot of people, and you're the only one who can portray this role, and it would mean so much to me, and I was practically crying on the phone, and finally she was like, okay, I can't say no.
The tears did it. Good
yeah,
job.
Exactly.
And looking at, there are a lot of cultural differences and things that, in America, you point out the fact that we would never hold that truth from somebody, although it definitely works to their favor, and Nai's still around, right? But it also, your film really connects us as people. I think we can all relate to every single one of those characters, no matter what our background is. Tell me a little bit about going through the different festivals that you have been to and how that has resonated, not just with Chinese, not just with Chinese Americans, but all the different cultures perhaps.
Yeah, it started really with This American Life. I became very popular at parties, especially hipster parties. I'd be like in Brooklyn at a party, and someone would hear my name, and they'd be like, wait, did you do the story on This American Life? But what was amazing about even doing the radio show, because it only took us a month to make, but it went very wide, is that people did hear it all over the world, and they were able to say, wow, like my family's Iranian, and we did this to my grandma, and I thought we were the only family, or I thought we were the only culture that did that. And so I got a lot of that, a lot of people coming up to me saying, I thought we were the only family, and I thought it was just like, our extended family, and we're crazy. And to understand that it wasn't just Chinese, it wasn't just Asian even, but a lot of older cultures, like I had people from Egypt, from South America, like just everywhere where, there's, I guess you could call it superstition, or maybe it's just more of like a connection between mind and body, like a belief in like mind and body connection, where the families do exactly this.
Good. And I have to ask you, the little bird that comes into the window twice, I think, maybe more times than twice, is that symbolic of anything culturally?
No, it was not like a cultural, anything symbolic. What, for me, it represented, well, just, I think in life, like you can look at something and you can read meaning into it, or you can look at something and go, it's just a bird. I think it's all about perspective. And so if you really pay attention, there are coincidences that happen all around us, and in the last few years, while I was on the road to making this movie, there were always these coincidences, and they're weird because you can't explain it to anyone. You can't be like, I think that bird and they would be like, what are you talking about, right? But in a way, if you find meaning in that and it gives you strength, then you can build on that and you can take it as a sign. Or it could be just a bird.
And you talked about being on the road. You were truly on the road because you took cast and crew all the way back to China, to familiar territory. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like emotionally to go back to what was familiar to you and the changes that you saw, kind of like what we saw the character go through?
Yeah, I mean, I was back there for like a location scout, my grandma got to meet all my producers, and then we went back to shoot the movie, and then when we went back to start prep, she was in the hospital, and so that was really emotional, because she was like, I don't want to die, because I don't want to ruin your movie during your production. She's like, and I was like, that's, don't worry, and she of course doesn't know what the movie's about or anything, and so I had to be like, there would be no, in my head I'm thinking there would be no movie without you, and so don't worry about that. But then she left the hospital, and so it was just really emotional. We were shooting in her neighborhood oftentimes. We were scouting in her neighborhood. Sometimes we'd have to go to the bathroom, and the closest one would be further away than where my grandma's apartment was. So I just took everyone to my grandma's apartment to pee in. So we just like knock on the door and be like, Grandma, can we pee? And I haven't been there since I was 6. I left the country when I was 6. So it was just so strange in my 30s with like other people who were in their 30s to be like, hi Nana, can we use your bathroom? And then every time we would leave, she would hand us all this food. Like she wouldn't let us leave until we ate some of the food and then brought it back to the crew. So it was just like really wonderful and really emotional, and wonderful just to kind of in a way like join the two parts of my life, the two worlds, and have the opportunity for my colleagues to see me in that world with my family, and have my family see me on set. Like my grandma would visit me on set. My great aunt plays herself. Little Nai is Little Nai, and Ellen is her real dog. She really sings. No other dog would sing, so we had to cast Ellen. And so it was just wonderful to like have her like actually be on set to see what I do.